Have you ever felt like you're carrying a burden that no one else can see? It's not material things. It's thoughts, habits, people memories. There's something inside you that you know you should let go of, but you don't. Maybe because you're afraid of the void. Maybe because you think that letting go will break you. But what if it's the opposite? What if holding on is what's destroying you? The Stoics knew this. They said it without raising their voices, in silence, through the power of their example. Because true transformation happens when no one is watching. Today, on Under the Stoic Sky, I'm not bringing you just any list. Today, we're going to talk about 5 things you need to eliminate from your life. But do it in silence, without noise, without excuses, without seeking approval. Because silence is where real change lives. The first thing you need to eliminate in silence is the need for validation. Yes, that urgency to show everyone that you're fine, that you've moved on, that it didn't hurt, that you've changed. But who are you really changing for? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And he was right. We live in an era where everything is shouted, posted, proven. But what's essential grows in the unseen. When you stop seeking recognition from others, when you no longer wait for the applause or the message, that's when you start walking your own path. Letting go of the need for validation isn't easy. It's like learning to breathe again. But the day you achieve it, you'll discover something powerful. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, because what you build in silence stands on its own. The second thing you need to eliminate in silence is resentment. The poison you drink hoping the other person will suffer. That story you replay in your mind. That pain you use as your identity. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to us, but our opinion about what happens to us that troubles us." And resentment doesn't live in the event itself, but in what you believe that event says about you. Forgiving isn't justifying. It's freeing your soul from the weight that keeps you from moving forward. You don't need a ceremony, or to write a letter, or close chapters with fireworks. All you need is to look inward, understand that your peace is worth more than being right, and let it go without anyone knowing, because the most powerful forgiveness is the one no one sees. The third thing you need to eliminate is excess words. How often do we speak just to fill the void, to avoid silence, to have the last word? But the Stoics knew that language has a cost. Seneca put it clearly, "Speak only when your words are kindled in silence." And he wasn't just talking about being polite. He meant that sometimes silence is wisdom. You don't need to explain your journey, your decisions, your changes. You don't owe anyone reasons when you choose to step away. Silence, when used well, is armor and also a sword. When you learn to speak less, you begin to listen more. And what you hear when you're silent is yourself. The fourth thing you need to eliminate in silence is comparison. That invisible habit that corrodes you from within. You look in the mirror, but you don't see yourself. You see what others have, what they've achieved, what they show, and you feel like something's missing. Like your path doesn't matter because it doesn't look like theirs. Like your pace is enough, but comparing is theft. It steals your peace, distracts you, and pulls you away from what truly matters. Your process. Every time you look to the side, you lose balance. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Stop wasting time arguing about what makes a good man. Be one. You're not here to compete. You're here to grow. And that growth happens in silence, without cameras, without witnesses. You don't need to be better than anyone. You just need to be more yourself." Comparison disguises itself as inspiration. But if it makes you feel less, it's ego in disguise. Let go of the need to compare yourself. Do it in silence, without announcing it, without seeking approval. Do it because you know your worth doesn't depend on being above others, but on being at peace with yourself. The fifth thing you need to eliminate in silence is the fear of being alone. Loneliness isn't the enemy. It's fertile ground where clarity, strength, and true self-love grow. But many run from it. They surround themselves with noise, distractions, people who don't add value, just to avoid feeling alone. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content with yourself first." And there's the key. Being alone isn't the same as feeling lonely. when you know yourself, accept yourself, and keep yourself company. Solitude transforms into power. Letting go of the fear of being alone doesn't require a speech. You don't need to declare that you're okay. You just need to be with yourself and not fear the silence. Because in that silence, you find answers that the noise never gave you. 5 things, 5 internal decisions. None of them require noise. None of them need witnesses. All you need is presence, awareness, and courage. Courage to let go without drama, to heal without drawing attention, to change without asking for permission. That's Stoicism. It's not coldness. It's contained inner fire. It's emotional discipline. It's choosing the harder path when you know it's the right one. And if you've read this far, it's because something in you has already started to awaken. Because deep down, you sense that your true strength isn't what you show, but in what you are when no one is watching. You don't need to shout about your transformation. You don't need to tell the world that you're changing. You just need to change in silence. And starting today, live under the Stoic sky. Do you know why silence makes so many people uncomfortable? Because in silence, you can't hide. In noise, you can pretend. You can act like nothing affects you, fill your schedule, your mind, your social media, and make everyone believe everything's fine. But when silence arrives, the mirror appears, and you can't lie to yourself. That's why many prefer to keep carrying all that drains their energy. The constant need for approval, old grudges, unnecessary words, painful comparisons, that deep fear of being alone. They carry it because letting go would force them to face themselves. But not you. You're here because you're ready. Ready to start emptying yourself of everything that holds you back. And you're going to do it without fanfare, without announcing it, without seeking applause from the world. Because what's valuable doesn't need to shout. The true Stoic doesn't walk to be seen. They walk because they know where they're going. Eliminating in silence is an act of self-love. It's having the courage to say, this no longer serves me. It no longer defines me. It no longer benefits me, without needing to explain it. Because you no longer care about looking good to others. You care about being at peace with yourself. When you stop needing external validation, you discover something powerful. You can act out of conviction, not pressure. You can say no without guilt. You can move forward, even if no one understands your path. When you let go of resentment, you're no longer tied to the past. And when you stop talking just to fill the void, you begin to speak only what's essential. Silence becomes your ally, your teacher. And when you stop looking at other people's lives, you can finally see your own. You reconnect with your purpose, with what you have, with who you are, with what truly matters. And if you manage to do all this in solitude, no one will be able to manipulate you with their presence, because you'll no longer depend on anyone to feel at peace. This is the freedom the Stoics cultivated. It wasn't about escaping the world, but learning to live in it without being enslaved by delusions. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by power and conflict, understood that the real battle wasn't outside, but within. That's why he meditated. That's why he wrote. That's why he stayed silent. He knew, as you begin to understand now, that the path of a strong soul is always silent. Sometimes people won't understand your process because they can't see what you're letting go of inside. They can't see the war you're fighting in silence. But that doesn't matter. You're not here to be understood. You're here to free yourself. Every day you choose silence over noise, you're tuning your soul. Every time you choose calm over reaction, you're cultivating inner mastery. And every time you choose to let go without drama, without revenge, without seeking attention, you're walking alongside the wise. And do you know what's most powerful about all this? The fruits of your transformation don't need to be explained. They're noticeable. They're felt. Because when a person stops living for others' eyes, their presence changes. It becomes firm, serene, unshakable. The Stoics weren't gods. They were human, with fears, with losses, with pain, but they chose a difficult path. The path of virtue, the path of reason over reaction, the path of meaning over overwhelming emotion. Seneca said the soul needs training, just like the body, and this training happens in moments no one sees. In how you choose to respond when you're ignored, in how you choose to stay silent when you could attack. in how you decide to move forward without carrying what no longer aligns with you. Today, you can begin that training. You don't need a temple, a retreat, or a spiritual label. You just need presence and courage. Courage to recognize what needs to go. Courage to accept it without justifying it. And most importantly, courage to let it go without making noise. Do it for yourself, not to prove anything, not to win arguments, not to be right. Do it because you deserve to live lightly, because you deserve mental silence, because you deserve peace. And yes, some people may distance themselves when you start acting from this place of inner calm. They may not understand your silence, your detachment, your new center, but you're not losing people. You're gaining clarity. Remember this. What you eliminate in silence gives you power back, the power to decide, the power to feel without being a slave to your emotions, the power to exist without asking for permission. It's not easy, but it's possible. And above all, it's necessary. When you start eliminating things in silence, something unexpected happens. You realize how many battles were unnecessary, how many conflicts only existed because you chose to stay, how much suffering came from your resistance to letting go. It's like a fog that begins to lift. Suddenly, you see clearly. And it's not because the world has changed, but because you're no longer trapped in it. Epictetus said, "If you desire something that doesn't depend on you, you're destined for frustration." And each of these 5 things you need to eliminate share something in common. They're fueled by what you cannot control. Other people's validation, their responses, their silences, their approval, none of it depends on you. The past you carry, the resentment you drag, the wounds you reopen, none of it does either. The empty words you use to mask your insecurity, the constant comparison with others' lives, the fear of being alone, all of it stems from the external, from what you cannot master. And the Stoic knows that they only focus on what they can control. Their judgment, their perception, their choice. That's where freedom lives. And do you know where that freedom begins? In silence. In that moment when you choose not to respond, not to act on impulse, not to stay where there's no longer truth, not to keep repeating the same script over and over again, because there's an uncomfortable truth many don't want to accept. If you want to change your life, you're going to have to go through a period of solitude, of misunderstanding, of emptiness. You'll have to turn off the noise. You'll have to be alone with your mind and see what's there. That moment can be terrifying, but it's also sacred because what you discover there transforms you forever. And when you emerge from that silence, you don't do it with shout. You do it with a new presence, with an aura that doesn't need words, with an energy that says, "I've let go, I've healed, and I no longer crawl for anything or anyone." That's the most powerful victory. Not the one others celebrate, but the one you recognize deep in your soul, the one you don't need to announce, the one that doesn't require witnesses, the one you live under the Stoic sky. Maybe no one will notice that you're changing. Maybe some will even mock you, because the world is used to noise, to spectacle, to public transformations with applause included. But what you're doing is different. You're not performing. You're cleaning your inner self. And that, to those who haven't had the courage to look within, is incomprehensible. That's why they'll call you cold. They'll call you strange. They'll say you've distanced yourself, that you're no longer the same. And they'll be right, because you're no longer willing to carry masks, other people's expectations, or inherited fears. Your energy is reorganizing. You're finding your center. And that shows even if you say nothing. Many will talk about discipline, success, overcoming, but few will speak about what truly matters. Learning to be with yourself in peace, without distractions, without depending on recognition, without demanding to be understood. That's emotional mastery. That's lived Stoicism. Not in books, not in quotes, not in videos. In real life, in the way you choose to remain silent when you could attack. In how you decide not to stay where your soul no longer flourishes. In how you understand that most of what you thought was necessary was an illusion. The material, the social, the superficial becomes light when the internal carries more weight, when you've tasted silence, when you know what it means to look within and not run away. From now on, you'll see the world differently. You won't seek to impress. You won't compete with anyone. You won't justify your decisions, because you'll be busy with something far more important, living in alignment with yourself. That can't be bought, can't be sold, can't be taught. It's built day by day, decision by decision, silence after silence. And while others run toward the noise, you'll walk inward, not because you're better, but because you've understood something they haven't yet seen. That true freedom isn't doing whatever you want, but stopping the need for what doesn't serve you. And that starts with elimination. Many believe strength is about enduring, holding on, suffering in silence. But the Stoics knew something deeper. That true strength isn't about bearing everything, but knowing what doesn't deserve to be borne. Eliminating in silence isn't an act of weakness. It's a declaration of power. It's recognizing that not everything deserves your energy, that not every battle is yours, that not every bond should last forever, that some ideas, emotions, and people are chapters, not destinies. And when you understand that, you don't shout it. You don't boast. You simply act. You act with firmness, with self-love, with direction. You rise each day without the burden of having to prove who you are, because you already know, and that's enough. On this new path, not everything will be peace. There will be doubts, moments of solitude, temptations to turn back, to justify yourself, to seek outside what you can only build within. But every time that happens, remember the Stoic truth. Nothing is stronger than a soul that has decided to be free. And real freedom begins when you eliminate what binds you, not with shouts, not with drama, but in silence, with the serenity of someone who no longer needs to be understood because they finally understand themselves. So today, I invite you to look within, to observe those 5 things you may still be carrying, and to have the courage to let them go, not because someone tells you to, not because you need to prove anything, but because it's time to live without burdens, without masks, without noise, time to live with clarity, with direction, with purpose, time to live under the Stoic sky.
Remember, practicing Stoicism is a daily journey toward inner peace and resilience. If this video has inspired you to reflect or helped you see things from a different perspective, I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. Which idea resonated with you the most? How do you apply Stoic discipline in your life? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any content. Together, we will continue exploring the wisdom of the great Stoics and discovering how to apply it to our modern lives. Thank you for being part of this community. See you in the next video. Keep cultivating strength with every step and share your journey with us.